Welcome to the Stowe Center's Sewing and Learning Workshop, Harriet Beecher Stowe and the Politics of Pocket Purses. I'm Beth Burgess, Director of Collections and Research, and today we'll be learning about the multi-layered history of pockets and small bags while participating in a virtual sewing circle. Rebecca Bayreuther Donohue will guide us through the process of sewing and decorating a replica of a reticule, the 19th century term for a purse. And Dr. Shirley Vida and Ed Janetta Miller will teach us about the somewhat hidden political, gender, and race history of pocket purses. Finally, we'll discuss our sewing, ask questions, and talk about the passion for making items, possibly as a form of advocacy, just like women in the past would have done in their own homes. So I hope you have your favorite warm drink and snack ready. Let's begin. This is the reticule in the Stowe Center's collection that today's portion of the sewing portion of the program is based on. It is a three-sided, drop-shaped drawstring bag that dates between 1810 and about 1830. Each side of this polished cotton reticule is hand-painted with sweet florals, as you can see, one of which includes the initials OB. I don't know if you can see that, but there it is. It is unclear whose initials OB were, who they belonged to, but what we do know is that this bag in form and shape was owned and used by a woman. It was acquired by the Stowe Center founder, Catherine Seymour Day, and most likely descended through her Hartford and Connecticut colonist ancestors. So it's a very sweet little item. Really hope we can tie all of the pieces of this history together through this one little piece. To start the program, I have the great honor to introduce Rebecca Bayreuther Donohue, historic clothing consultant and designer of the pocket purse pattern created for this program. Rebecca was the period costume workshop manager at Mystic Seaport Museum for the last 11 years, where she created and maintained hundreds of reproduction 1876 wardrobes for multiple seasons, social classes, ages, and genders. Providing support for various museums and historic sites, including Plymouth Patuxent and the Newport Historical Society, she brings her research, knowledge, and period-appropriate sewing skills as a consultant on independent projects. Last fall, Rebecca created the replica Phrygian cap for our Sewing and Learning Isabella Beecher Hooker and the American Women's Suffrage Movement virtual program, and we are delighted to work with her once again. Welcome, Rebecca.
Well, thank you so much, Beth and Amy and everybody at the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center. It's a great honor and privilege to be invited back for another exciting project in history. So we have today the three-sided reticule that Beth showed. And what we're going to make with your packets is a slightly larger size than the original so that we can pack as many of our own projects in it as possible. This particular purse was an interesting thing to see. There are many such objects in different museum collections from this time period, oftentimes made with either silk or, in this case, it was glazed cotton, but often they're also made with just a plain muslin, as we would call it today, lawn. And so they're like this one, they're not terribly sturdy. You're not going to pack it full of bricks. It may carry a cell phone, and hopefully this one will carry, it's large enough to carry several different things for you. But again, it's delicate. It's not made to tote things. This one has no lining. So, but it is embellished on all three sides, which is really interesting. Many of them are only embroidered or painted, or in this case, inked on one side, and oftentimes in one color. Brown is what they tend to turn up as today, which is oftentimes a black ink that has faded through the years. Sometimes they're embroidered in beautiful colors of silk or cotton thread. What we're going to do today is use fabric markers, which have been provided for you in your packet, to put whatever kind of embellishment you want on yours, whether it's just a monogram or whether it is a beautiful picture that you have found in some kind of a magazine and want to copy it on that, or we hope that you also use the stencils that are provided in your lovely packet as well, and put those on maybe all three sides, maybe just one. Oftentimes as well, the purses are either embroidered or there's additional embellishment added around the edges, and that gives it some support and shape as well. We have cord, the braided cord for you in your packets, and that will take the place of giving it some structure and support, but you can embellish it all the way around if you want. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with drawing the image. There are kind of two parts to this project because you get to be an artist first and then put your bag together. And the nice thing is, if you have a sturdy piece of cardboard, and honestly, this I got out of a calendar, you can slide that into the bag afterwards and do whatever kind of artwork you want later. So it really doesn't matter what direction you take these steps in. I'm going to address the drawing of the images first. So what I did was cut out, and I'm going to move the screen down so you can see the materials here. Cut out 3 of your pattern pieces by drawing the pattern shapes onto the fabric that you're provided. What I did to make this really easy was to fold the fabric in 3 and then draw the pattern on and cut all 3 of them out at the same time. That saves you a few steps, and then you know they're all the right size. Then what I recommend is to use the rest of the scrap fabric that you have for practicing with the fabric markers. I tried a bunch of different markers. So this is one of my many doodles, if you will, to see how much they bled or not. If you have fabric markers with your, either personally or with your packet, just play around with them to see what you get before you start anything. I found that Sharpie pens also work quite nicely. So if you have some of those that you want to add to the patterns that you have in the markers in your packet, go ahead and do that too. I started tracing things in pencil before I went over them in marker, because that's easy to do on the fabric that we're giving you, that nice tight weave cotton. If you're doing this project without the benefit of the packet, just make sure that the pencil will either come off afterwards or that you're going to ink everywhere on the pen, over the pencil line when you get to the actual reticule. So we have also with your fabric markers, remember that the more that you press down onto the surface, the more ink is going to soak into the fabric. So again, I played around with that a little bit to see how much fuzzing the letters got. So just one more thing to be aware of. All right. So whether you draw your on your fabric first or do it up at some point, you want to be careful of your seam allowances when you do up the fabric, just make sure that you've got the seam allowance traced out. So if you just do decide to go up the sides, like many of the originals, be aware that that's there. Interestingly enough, the cord that's going to be applied over the seams does not show on the inside of the original reticule. So it's tacked over top of this seam. I think if you really wanted to do a modern interpretation that you're doing maybe on the machine, or you need a little more stability, you might use lipped upholstery cord and, you know, sandwich that in before you do up that seam. But again, there's no sign of that on the original. All right. So once you've done your drawing and you're ready to put the bag together, as I've said, there you have all of your seam allowances. You can clip the corners if you want. I have not clipped the corners here. I've just kind of let the fabric come into a point. I've run the seams into each point, and I did do these on the machine. But if you choose to hand sew them, the original it's just a running stitch. It's not back stitched. You know, this is not, again, not meant to hold a great many heavy things for a very long time. There's also on the original absolutely no sign of clipping corners. You can if you want, but on the original, all of this fabric is sort of lodged into one sort of blob. And that continues all the way. It's a gradual curve, so it's not going to affect the shape of the reticule that much. You can, if you don't clip a curve, you can if you want, but again, no sign of that. Actually, I think, oh no, this is fine. I've got a couple of different prototypes here, but I think this is going to give you the easiest. So on this, I've done up all the seams, which you're going to do all the way. And then you're going to fold in order to get to the draw cord channel. You're simply going to fold back where to where the draw cord is marked, the middle of the draw cord, marked with a dotted line on your pattern, and sew a running stitch all the way around that channel, except for the very back seam. There's my very back seam. So miss that little bit there, and that'll allow you to run the draw cord through. I actually don't have a prototype with only one draw cord. I've done both of them with the double draw. But if you only want to do one, because the thought of making eyelets in a channel is sad, just missed sewing the very back of the draw cord channel. So that then leaves you with all of this fluff inside the bag, but a lovely channel for your draw cord. On this prototype, I've turned under that fluff and just run a seam. All of these little hems are visible on the outside of the original reticule. So again, you don't have to worry. If you sew it on the machine, it's fine. If you do it by hand, that's absolutely wonderful. This piece is going to fluff when the draw cord is pulled and be a little ruffle at the very top of the bag. So very cute. In some originals, this is a little piece of lace, or this fluff is a little bigger. On this reticule, it's pretty small. So if you do want a double draw cord like the original, what you're going to have to wind up doing is going to whichever panel you've designated as the front and clipping 2 holes in just one side of the channel, and then doing a little buttonhole stitch around each hole. This is what the original has, in order to run a draw cord through. Again, if you just want to run the single draw cord, don't worry about it. But if you want the double, you're going to want to do that, and then run the draw cord itself, which means taking the cord that you have. And I think, to be honest, we don't have enough cord for the double draw cord in the packet. So this may be something that you do on your own. I think what we're going to do is simply stick to the single draw cord, which will make a nice little bag here. And then what you'll have enough cording to do with your packet, of course, is run the same cord. And this is just yarn, but you get the idea. Run the cord around each side, and the original has a piece of cord. Let me get some of the cording out here. The original keeps your work as minimal as possible by running one of these cords around one whole side of a panel, all the way back up to the top, and fixing it there, and then just taking another little piece and running it up that last seam. Okay. Again, as I've mentioned in the instructions, this cord frays badly. So on the original, what they've done is simply taken a little tuck in it and lashed that, sort of secured that with thread, and then sewed it on just below the channel of the draw cord. This does not continue all the way up. It sits just below just at the draw cord seam. So after that, again, if you've done your embellishing first, great. If you still need to, throw a piece of cardboard in there and flatten out your reticule and doodle away. When you've done all your cording along the seams, and then you have whatever you have left for your draw cord, go ahead and tape that. I recommend taping the ends so they don't fray. Throwing a safety pin through one of those taped ends, running the draw cord all the way through the channel. And then when it comes out, you can take the tape off, just tie a half hitch, just one overhand knot into both of those cords. You can see on the original that they're tied together, both cords. And then the ends kind of are fluffed out into little tassels. And that should be your reticule for keeping whatever you want in your treasures or gifting to somebody else.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for giving us the instructions on how to make your own reticule. I'm so excited to see what we all can create and learn more from Dr. Vida and Edgenetta Miller. Thank you.
Thank you.